All right, so here we go. The very first direct to my growth rings Q&A session. This is the follow-up to the video where I did the overhaul kit on this Shopsmith bandsaw. Let's just come right to the questions. Albert said you briefly mentioned the tires. Have you had time to determine which polyurethane tires you prefer, the blue or the orange? What he's talking about is I do recommend if you're going to replace the tires that you go with polyurethane tires. And I have a personal preference, almost a prejudice towards the blue one. There's something about them I like. And on that bandsaw back here, let's lean this over, that bandsaw back there, that one has a blue tire on the top and an orange tire on the bottom. And another bandsaw here in the shop has the orange tire on top, the blue tire on the bottom. I'm trying to give them equal time, equal wear, and so far it's inconclusive. So I guess yeah, I could say either one you're fine, but I happen to like the blue ones. No real evidence. The rubber tires I find will dry rot where it is possible because we're not gluing them. The polyurethane ones can get a little bit out of shape, and especially if you overheat them and overstretch them when you install them. So just be careful. I did a video on that, and I'm sure there's lots of other videos on YouTube that you can take a look at if that's something you're interested in. Hank said, I've had a couple people that took the blade tensioning assembly apart and couldn't put it back together properly. I was hoping you were going to go into that part of reassembly. Would it be possible to go through that in the Q&A or in a separate video? So what Hank is talking about is here where I mentioned the fact that the tensioning is done over here on the bandsaw. Come on in here. The tension is adjusted right here. I've done a video or two on how this works. But on video, I've never taken this apart, and I'm not going to do it on this video. But what I will tell you is you take the blade off, you remove all the tension from this. And with a pair of snap ring pliers, you remove a snap ring and a washer. And then you've got this steel plate right here. This steel plate is our adjustment to get the tension set right. When this is properly set up, the edge of this uh, tension gauge is flush with this steel spring, this flat spring that has a red edge on it. And that way, when we tighten this, you'll see that the red will begin to disappear behind this plate. And when it aligns with the mark that indicates the size blade we're using, it's actually pretty close to exact, especially using the Timberwolf blades. There's no reason to over tension these. And if you do over tension them, they actually lose tension. It's a crazy phenomenon that takes place in the way that this arm and this wheel are designed to work. We'll talk about that. No, I've already talked about that. There's a video about that. You can check that out. Don said, "What if the spacing between high and low wasn't considered?" What he's talking about is the spacing between the the thrust bearing, the backup bearing over here, and the back of the blade. And my comment about how you can get this to where when it's low, the blade is just ahead. We're talking maybe a 16th of an inch at most ahead of that thrust bearing, so that when we do push our wood against it, it pushes the blade against the thrust bearing and the backup bearing. And we want that same spacing to be the case at the very top as well as the very bottom. Again, I did a video about this, but let me bring you in here and show you, point out what we have to do to get this just right. All right, we'll start by taking this guard back off. I don't know why, because everything we're going to be looking at is up here. But what we have and what allows this post to move straight up and down is there are two set screws, and the set screws are captured by two lock nuts or jam nuts. To adjust this, you loosen the nut and you get it just loose. and then you either drive the set screw forward or you back the set screw out, and you drive the set screw forward or you back the set screw out. So if this is moving parallel and I'm not happy with the spacing, I would like to have this have a little bit of a gap. I would loosen these and then I would drive those set screws both equal distances forward. That would take this entire post and move it back. It would move that bearing back. If I wanted to bring it forward, I would loosen the nuts and then back off the set screws, and that brings it forward. Now, there's a little bit more to it than that. There is a spring then back here, big old flat spring that has to be either brought forward or pushed back in order to allow this to move up and down and lock in place. Again, I did a video on this. I'll put a link to that so that we can follow along and understand exactly what I'm talking about. All right. Um, by the way, we're not going to do a lot of editing on these videos. There's no need, no need for these to be pretty. Hope that doesn't bother you. Don also said he has a very early bandsaw with metal knobs for the cover and brass bushings for the thrust bearings. Yeah, they actually were bronze. I have one of those here. I thought I'd bring up. Let me quickly put this back together. I guess I will do some editing. We'll edit this out. So this bandsaw was made in 1985, this bandsaw here. Take this down, and in its place, let's lift up this one from 1959. And it's dirty. Here's the cover. It is a green Magna bandsaw, which I think is pretty in its own way. Come and take a look at this one. There you can see thrust bearings. Now, these have to be kept lubricated. WD-40 is not a lubricant. WD-40 will break those loose if they've gotten gunked up. But then you want to get rid of all the WD-40 and add some machine oil, some 10 weight oil. The same oil that I use in the jigsaw is perfect for that. It's a losing battle, though, because as soon as you put fresh oil in there, that fresh oil attracts dust, and that causes it to clog up. And boy, it's just a repeating cycle. Okay, so I actually didn't get to Don's questions. Don said, question number one, the wheels don't have any drilling for balancing. Does he need to be concerned? Um, and he mentions he doesn't have the fund to buy the kit, and so he's a little concerned about that. I mentioned how, well, I showed it, how Shopsmith Incorporated started drilling holes in the back of the rim of these wheels to get them balanced. Prior to that, first off, the earliest ones weren't balanced because they run at such a low speed, you'd think it wouldn't matter. But once they finally determined that, you know what, we do need to balance these, what they did instead of drilling holes in the back was they would grind a little bit of metal off of this part of the rim. So I have another bandsaw. Let me bring it up here and we'll take a look at it and you'll see what I'm talking about. Oh, just now realizing I didn't even need to remove that because I have this one set up on a power station. So let's take a look at this one. All right, this one is an early 1980s bandsaw. You can see the tires are in just horrible, horrible shape. Um, but this one does have the balancing that I mentioned. Okay, so if you look at this, you'll notice we have a nice rounded corners, nice rounded edge right here. But if we go back to this one, you can see that beginning at about this point, they've ground a little bit of that away. And it's not all that pretty, actually, up in here. But that's how, when they found the need to balance them, that's how they were done before they started computer balancing them. Christopher said, great video, Scott. When you do these types of videos, it really highlights the great engineering and design of the products. I am one who really appreciates when engineering that accommodates future repairability. Yeah, I agree. That's one of those things that, in fact, there are companies that have argued in court that you, as a consumer who's purchased a product, shouldn't be allowed to have it repaired. To me, that's just insane, but that's currently the situation. Shopsmith tools, at least until the first Power Pro, I would say no problem. Yeah, you can do any of the repairs you want. The Power Pro introduced some complexity that the average person is not going to be able to deal with if things would go awry. In worst case scenario, the company isn't around to support it. So here's one advantage to the mechanical products, the classic Shopsmith tools. Now, what I'm wondering, what does one do with all the used parts? Do we just throw them away? That's a really good question because I took the parts off of the bandsaw, and so far I've held on to them because you never know. Those wheels may be better than the wheels of the next bandsaw that comes into the shop. Certain parts may be better than others. You might be able to replace a bearing or something that today it's not practical, but in the future you can press the bearings out. So um, if you want to, you hold on to them. If not, you throw them away or you put them on eBay. There might be somebody else who would be interested in picking those up from you. It's up to you. Brian says, nice job and very informative. Thank you, Brian. Do you happen to know the bearing number of the pair that replaces the water pump bearing? Um, okay, no, I don't know the number. The new water pump bearing assembly or the new assembly that is the two high-speed bearings. I really don't know what those are. Maybe we can get those over at the Shopsmith forum because there's a lot of people over there that talk about these things. What I can do is if you have a machinist friend or you've got tools, I can point to genuine water pump bearing assemblies that you could have machined to fit whatever purpose you have. Um, it's the best I can do for now, and maybe we'll find those bearings and we'll share that at that point. Mark said the advantages of the new larger aluminum table are obvious. What advantages do you see in the older cast iron table? That's a good question too. All right, so I've mentioned I have an opinion. I like the cast iron table. I like the aluminum table. If I were to buy a bandsaw used today, I would leave it the way it is. If it has the cast iron tables, I'm fine. If it has the aluminum tables, I'm fine because I can use my miter gauge as a fence on this table. I can use my miter gauge as a fence on this table. I can use magnetic things, fences and jigs and fixtures. What is the name of that? Magnalock. Magnalock is the name of the Magnalock. the little the little device that you can build into your jigs. You turn a switch basically, and it reverses the polarity. So you can set something down, flip a little switch, and it's locked on the cast iron table. Can't do that with the aluminum table, obviously. The other thing is, depending upon how you have everything aligned, I can still bring my Mark V into the drill press position with this bandsaw sitting on the machine. With the larger table, again, depending upon how you have it aligned, and if you've invested in the what I think are ridiculous offset tubes, then maybe you can go to the drill press position. By the way, that was something that caught the Shopsmith engineers completely off guard. They didn't realize when they were launching the larger table at the same sales meeting, they had all the managers come together, of which I was one. This would have been around 1989, 80, 88. Met in Pinehurst Springs, North Carolina. And they, one of the guys said, "Hey, wait a second. I don't think we can go to the drill press position." I said, "What are you talking about?" And they had the strip sander. Oh, the strip sander was the other one they were introducing at that time. They lifted the strip sander up and it snapped the knob that the trunnion for the table. It snapped it completely off. And then they put the Shopsmith bandsaw in place, and I think it was the one that had a fence rail. That was all the difference, quarter inch or so. They weren't able to bring it into the drill press position. Anyway, I'm going on about this. With the cast iron table, that's not a problem. So if I had an aluminum table, I'm not telling you, oh, the cast iron's so much better, you should seek that out. But likewise, I don't like the aluminum table of this one. The aluminum table has all those grooves in it, which I find sometimes the pieces I'm cutting get snagged on those grooves. They figured that out at one point, and they actually changed the casting. The one back here, there's maybe a half inch of smooth table around the table insert. They learned that, oh, that this is a problem, and they made it a much larger smooth section in the center to eliminate that to some degree, but still you can catch. I've had little knots that have slipped out and gotten caught in the groove, and I didn't realize. And I'm going along cutting something, and all of a sudden my cut's going off track, and I don't know why. It's because something's caught in that. The same thing could happen with these miter slots, but I found that it's 10 times as big of a frustration with the aluminum table. Okay, that's it. I'm not going to talk about them anymore, but that's my opinion. Ron asked, why do some of us acquire so many basket case machines? We have large baskets. He's right. I scraped and strained to get my first Shopsmith bandsaw years ago. I was buying a new one. I wasn't buying a used one. Knowing what I know now, I don't fear the used ones, but the used ones might need some repair work, and I don't fear that anymore either. I would suggest if you've never repaired a Shopsmith bandsaw or really any of the accessories, pick up a basket case, get a cheap one on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. You can't make it any worse than it is, and I'll guarantee you'll actually make it better. So give it a try. Mike said, what about guide blocks? I've swapped out the original steel blocks on my newer bandsaw, um, mounted on the deuce, he calls it. Swapped them out for cool blocks. My older bandsaw, now finally running on a power station, still has the original metal blocks. From my own limited observation in my local market, almost every Shopsmith listing has included a bandsaw, probably making it the #1 SPT. And yeah, somebody else actually mentioned the blocks and asked, well, are you going to put in cool blocks or ball bearings? Here again, I don't care if you've got the thing properly tuned, it doesn't matter. The steel guide blocks work fine. I do like ceramic guides. I like cool blocks, although cool blocks wear relatively quickly, and I find myself having to touch them up. The ball bearing guides from Carter are very nice. I've got that on that bandsaw back there, uh, but they're unnecessary. I like if let's say I bought a bandsaw and it didn't have any guide blocks whatsoever, what would I buy? I'd probably look for ceramic blocks right out the gate. If I couldn't find ceramic ones from a price standpoint, I'd probably go with cool blocks. If all I could find or find locally were the standard steel blocks, I'd use those. And I'm very less inclined to recommend the ball bearings, although they work great. They work great. I just don't think it's necessary. I'd love to hear your opinion, though. That's my opinion. So thank you for practicing this new approach. This video will go private in about a week. It'll become member-only content. If you hadn't explored that paid member-only content, you can check out those details, mygrowthrings.com, and click on About Membership. If you're here, you already know about that. Maybe you're here on a free membership and you want to support the channel. You can jump in and out of that if you want. If you just want to throw me a $4 tip, I greatly appreciate it. But either way, I'm glad you're here. All right, that's all I got. Make it a great day.